but they're working very closely with CORAF, which is the Western Central African Agriculture Council, and Research and Development Council. And we are privileged to have the Executive Director with us, Dr. Abdul Tenkouano. Dr. Abdul, if you may please come over. And he's going to share with us his perspectives on how we can address some of these challenges.
Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, dear colleagues of the Climate Smart community, warm greetings to you all gathered here today at the forum at Columbia University here in Manhattan, and also to all who join us online from around the world. 7 minutes, that is the time I have to deliver my message. Time is not on my side, and I need to accelerate. 7 years, that is essentially the time left to 2030, when the world would have eradicated hunger, poverty, and made Earth once more a beautiful and peaceful place to be. Time is not on our side, and we need to accelerate action against climate change. If Greta Thunberg had been here, it is likely that she would have told me, "Shut up, sir. This is not time for talking. It is time for action." I promise I will shut up soon, but let me tell you what action is being done by a program called Accelerating Impacts of CGR Climate Research for Africa in Africa, where I come from. So what can I tell you in the time I have left to make us do the most of the time we have left to 2030? Firstly, that I am privileged to be here in this building that I am told was conceived as a space for the community to engage the world-leading research done by Columbia University. Actually, I'm quite intimidated. So what better platform could I dream of to make this argument on the urgency for accelerated action? In its 14th year, Climate Week NYC is the biggest event of its kind in the world, providing a festival of ideas for the biggest challenge that we have ever faced. And what a better theme than the one that brings us together today to look at Africa's opportunity for a climate-smart future in the global food crisis. It is said that a crisis is a terrible opportunity to waste. We see not just one crisis, but an unprecedented convergence of multiple disruptors. But where are the opportunities? The queen of all opportunities, perhaps, is in coming together as true partners to harness the power of connecting hands, hearts, brains, and finances across the globe to make sure our collective impact is felt on ground, notably in Africa, where I come from. I know that the collective intelligence and passion for action that is assembled here and online will be a rocket-lifting accelerator for climate action. Secondly, that Africa can deliver a climate-smart, resilient, and prosperous future for its people, especially the youth, and this is a global responsibility for Africa. We may have faced setbacks due to local and global conflicts, COVID, and climate change, but the people of Africa have the aspiration and drive to transform the continent's agriculture and food systems. Do they have the choice? The Sahel region of West Africa, for example, is prone to drought, but also to floods, which means that we need to do is to capture water when it comes plentifully and use it when there is not enough of it coming from the sky. We can do this. thanks to climate smart practices promoted and rolled out by ICRA. Africa's climate has warmed more than the global average. Sea level rises from African coastlines have also been faster than the global mean. Continental water bodies are drying up, especially Lake Chad. This has had significant adverse impacts on agriculture, on the agricultural sector, ecosystems, biodiversity, and broader development of the region. According to estimates, at least 828 million people globally, 123 million people in sub-Saharan Africa are unable to meet their minimum food consumption needs right now. This means that 1 in 7 hungry people in the world is an African, and that 1 in 10 Africans is hungry. What does that mean? That if we succeed in reversing the trends in Africa, where I come from, we will have learned on how to do the same for the rest of the world. Thirdly, that I am proud and honored to serve CORAF, an association of national agricultural research systems from 23 countries in West and Central Africa. And I'm here today to argue that despite challenges, African institutions are establishing compelling agendas for action, claiming greater ownership and priority for investment that deliver a climate-smart future. An example is the Climate Change and Resilient Development Strategy and Action Plan of the African Union. Support from institutions like the World Bank and global research partnerships like CGR have, can, and must continue to play a critical role in meeting the challenges that Africa faces. Science and research have delivered groundbreaking innovation in agriculture in the past, but to face the challenges ahead, we must make science to make more sense to all. By better connecting global science with the agendas of African institutions and change makers, including young African agricultural entrepreneurs. And ICRA is positioned as a model for groundbreaking partnerships that connects the dots in linking science, policy, and action. And that is how we turn crisis into opportunities for a climate-smart future in Africa. In concluding, my remarks have largely been on the adaptation part, which has its own dose of mitigation, but the world has awakened to the need of accelerating mitigation deliberately, consistently, massively. Is it then possible to dream that when we collectively succeed in so doing, we would reverse climate change? Let us therefore maintain course on accelerating the impact of CGR climate research in Africa, where I come from. I had 7 minutes. We have 7 years. And with that, I pass the baton to my esteemed colleague, Ana Maria, and I would like to end by thanking Columbia University's Climate School, the World Bank, and ICRA for hosting today's event and for having me be part of it. Thank to you all for your kind attention.
Now, turning back to you, Abdul, for your tweet. You've heard about financing, you've heard about capacity building, partnerships, and science. And one question is, like, we had Ruth opening, and we're here at Columbia Climate School, and she's the co-founding dean. And it's the first school that Columbia has created in 50 years or so. Yeah. So so what would you want a university like Columbia or advanced research institutions from other countries to do for CORAF and the network you represent in 23 countries that you mentioned to strengthen those national systems? What would you like to do? Because we also have more than 100 people online. So what's your message? What's your tweet?
Yes, thank you, Dinesh. We have already been engaging with universities in the US, those that are part of the Feed the Future system, to support our centers of specializations. We have agreed that we couldn't do everything everywhere, And that's because we don't have sufficient finances, not sufficient manpower. So it is wise that we assemble that intelligence that is spread in different places into what we call centers of specialization on different commodities. And we see those centers as immersion points for international expertise. But if you would allow me to digress a bit to talk about the youth, because they are very much part of it, in this program, we give a lot of importance to training the next generation of scientists. The future is theirs, not ours. And they say that if we don't do things with them, it is not for them. That's a message that we've been getting across Africa. And we hope that Columbia University and other universities in the US can help us to meet that demand of the youth for capacity building so that they would be the next generation.
Perfect. Thank you, Abdul. But while you're doing that, then I want to come back to you, Abdul, because you said we have 7 years to act. And you've heard some of the offers from different stakeholders on the panel on different elements that people are offering, the capacity building offer, the research offer, the scaling offer, the entrepreneurship offer, the development offer. Is that enough? What more would you like to see?
I think learning from the mistakes of the past, I would say that technology is not what makes things to change. It's important. But unless you have a mechanism of getting them into the communities that need to use them and consider the communities themselves as local agents of change, no matter how good the technology is, the difference on ground will not be achieved. And perhaps that's where we need to learn. How do we develop those social constructs that allow us to go into the communities? And as we go into the communities, there is one word of caution maybe. Farmers are very conservative. They are smart. They don't invest in something that they don't know, even when they see that it is potentially good. So you need perhaps to think of how to bring disruptive technologies in a non-disruptive approach. And that science of penetrating the communities without disturbing them too much is probably one of the key things that we have learned, that we need to learn more. And perhaps that's one of the things that you can help us to develop into a very solid technology.
Absolutely. That's a really valid point.